Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to my channel, Become the Disruptor. My name is Magda. I'm a qualified trauma-informed therapist, and today we're going to be talking about the difference. And again, I want to give you some discernment between hypervigilance and actual intuition, or what we call intuition. Because your intuition, the first thing that I want you to know is your intuition is literally pattern recognition. You're recognizing patterns in someone's behavior, you're recognizing patterns in your life, and that's why, guys, it's almost like hypervigilance and seeing threat in everything or where it actually not. It's like you ignoring the actual pattern recognition, because hypervigilance will not gonna give you clarity. Hypervigilance is there so you scan for threat all the time. You're interpreting other people's behaviors and you're adding meaning to other people's behaviors and words. You're adding layers of that meaning and you create urgency that you have to act. Now, let me give you an example so you can actually see what's happening, because intuition, aka the pattern recognition, is not going to feel comfortable for some of you either, because your intuition is going to show you the patterns in your behavior and patterns in other people's behavior that you are tolerating, for example, and you're not putting boundaries there. It's going to show you and again, there's no urgency there. Intuition, your pattern recognition is quiet. It's not going to shout like hypervigilance. There's like, you got to do this now. That's your mind and hypervigilance taking over. When you feel a pressure and urgency, you can straight away think that this is hypervigilance. But let's, like I said, let's talk about an example. So let's say you have a conversation with your boss. Yeah, that's like a pretty neutral example. So you have a conversation, a difficult conversation with your boss, and let's say you're asking for a raise, and they say to you, "Not now," Now, what is happening? A lot of the people from conversations with others, they will add layers. So, for example, you are not hearing what they actually saying, because let's say the boss said, "Not now." Not now means not now, but that doesn't mean that you working badly, that it's not that you're not worthy. It's just saying not now. They might say, you can then ask a question, can I try in 2-3 months? They might say yes or no. Again, you should be asking in any difficult conversation, you should focus on facts and what are the actual words of the other person, what the other person is saying. If you are adding meaning and interpreting the words of another person, that is your interpretation, that is your meaning making. Now, let's talk about the other thing. The reason why I'm telling you, the example with the boss, but that could be any conversation, any difficult conversation that you have with anyone. I want you to, guys, because a lot of you had been gaslighted to the bone, and I want to give you the tool for hypervigilance and the pattern recognition, and also how to see where you are actually being gaslighted. Now, gaslighted, when I say gaslighting, I mean someone is trying to change the perception of what you are saying, and they are invalidating that perception. So let's say they are changing the facts. Now, facts you cannot change. So for example, when someone says, I don't know, something, let's say when you place the boundary before again and again. Let's say you have a boss that is, I don't know, having funky, making funny comments about, let's say, your outlook, your appearance. And you say to them, can you please stop making these comments? And if then they say, I'm not making any comments, then your thing is to, but you just said that and you quote. You have to always, in any difficult conversation, stick with the facts. But a lot of you guys, again, because you are so hypervigilant, you cannot see sometimes a threat that is actually there. So for example, if you had a, toxic gaslighting parent, for you, gaslighting will be normal. And you're going to be, if someone says, I didn't say that, you're like, oh yeah, that's probably me. I was mistaken. Okay. rewind the camera, let's hear what that person said. If they commented on your behavior and now they said they didn't, that is gaslighting. Now, so this is, like I said, this is the tool for discernment. And what is happening here? Hypervigilance, urgency, I have to act now. Pattern recognition. If someone, let's say, keeps on, let's say, commenting on your appearance without you, when you already said, please don't do that. Pattern recognition, that's your intuition. You're recognizing this person doesn't respect my boundaries. This person is not safe. I don't want. So you limit access if you can, or you change a job if that's your boss. Yeah, guys. So, but hypervigilance will tell you, you have to do it now. You have to, like quit now. Like, no, you don't have to do anything, because every time someone else is a point of a reference to your decision making, you got to think about your well-being. Without this job, can you be able to sustain yourself financially? Yes or no? There's only one answer. Yeah. Now, the other thing is that then, if that's not the case, you have to stay a bit longer in that job. Can you limit the access that you have towards this person? Can you just not be, not put yourself in environments close to them, etc., etc. And every time, I promise you this, and you know that already, every time you recognize the pattern in someone else's behavior, you don't lie to yourself. You limit the access if the boundary is being broken, or you actually change the proximity. If a person is actually really lovely, you're like, okay, we can get closer. Brilliant. Do that. Every time you're recognizing a pattern, and that pattern almost like you acting in accordance to that pattern, so you're not gaslighting then your own perception, your own pattern recognition, your own intuition. That is you reading more patterns, being more intuitive, actually intuitive. So I hope that gave you enough to start really discerning between hypervigilance and between a proper intuition, aka pattern recognition. And I specifically actually used relational example because a lot of the people that I'm working with, and so many people online, what I'm saying, that you experience, guys, so much betrayal from a young age, that you normalized it so much that I think that it's time for you to really break this pattern. So this is because, so that's why I given that particular example for a tool for discernment, so you can really, be very honest with yourself and start noticing those sensations of activation and urgency. That's hypervigilance, that old pattern. You have to notice that within the body. It has to be like, you have to notice that in the body when sometimes equally uncomfortable, when there's a pattern recognition. Like I said, the pattern is recognizing my boss is breaking my boundaries again and again, even though I said, please don't make these comments, just to stick with that example. And for you, then it's time to act. Like I said, limit the access if you can, drop the work, whatever and again, this is a, work relationship, could be any other relationship. So each time you do that, you gain more discernment. And you trust yourself more. And this is the whole bit. When you are acting upon your pattern recognition, your intuition, versus not acting upon your hypervigilance, your body starts trusting you. And you will notice less fear spikes. Way less. And I know that from my own work that I've done with myself, which took some time. But also on all the other work that I've done with my clients. And you can see that, at the feedback, that I would say, like, one of the things that people gain from therapy with me and other clinicians who are working in a similar way is that the self-trust skyrockets. Because you start really, it's like you're regaining your own perception, and you cannot argue with facts. If someone is making, let's say, comments, just to stick with that example, in spite of you telling them not to make these comments, that is a pattern of their behavior. That is a pattern of their boundary breaking. So, trust that was helpful. That was a loud clap. Trust that was helpful. If so, like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to book a session with me to discuss maybe one of these to help you to discern, and like I said, guys, for a lot of you, it's literally could be like a one session and you'll be good to go, because I'll be able to see that pattern, tell you like what are the things that you might have to work on. And then you go outside of the session, do the work. And then if you need me again for some other recalibration, maybe some confusion or doubt crops up, you book a session again. But it's not a therapy. Like I said, it's not like the validation reassurance therapy. Anyhow, enough that. Everything is on my website, so you can read it there, how I work at things like that. I'm not going to bore you with this again. I want to give you some proper knowledge. So I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.